The regulatory welfare state is immoral and is destructive of the hallowed purpose for which the federal government was created. God never gave us the right to have governments give us an advantage over others, to be free of the challenges of life, to be protected from the consequences of our own actions, and to have others forced to pay our living expenses and subsidize our vices. So the progressive's conception of civil government is morally defective. In order to be the provider of benefits to some, the federal government must violate the God-given property rights of others. It must rob Peter to redistribute to Paul. In order to protect us from the risks and uncertainties of life, including made-up problems such as global warming and lack of medical insurance, it must violate everyone's God-given rights to liberty. Today, the federal government exercises vast powers not delegated in the Constitution, has become an instrument of oppression, injustice, and immorality, and has taken away most of our God-given rights, replaced them with man-made anti-rights, and is conniving to take away our God-given right to self-defense. The federal government was transformed from being the securer of our God-given rights to a weapon used to oppress some of the people for the benefit of other people and to take everyone's liberty away except for those in the ruling class. So, what can we do? Does the creature dictate to the Creator? Who created Congress? We did. Who created the executive branch? We did. Who created the judicial branch? We did. Does the creature dictate to the Creator? The progressives, which includes our false friends, say yes. These are the ones pushing for an Article 5 convention. They say every law made by Congress, the legislative branch of the federal government, is supreme, and every executive order and every word in the Code of Federal Regulations, the executive branch of the federal government, is binding, and the states and the people must obey unless and until 5 judges on the Supreme Court, the judicial branch of the federal government, say the law or executive order or agency rule is unconstitutional. In other words, only the federal government may question the federal government and no one may question the Supreme Court. They insist the federal government is the exclusive and final judge of the extent of its powers, and the opinion of 5 judges the sole measure of its powers. They say the only solution to our political and economic problems is to amend the Constitution, and we can only make the amendments they say we need at an Article 5 convention. But what they really want is a new Constitution. To get that, they must have a convention. But our framers never said, when the federal government violates the Constitution, amend the Constitution. They never said, file a lawsuit and let federal judges decide. Our framers were manly men. They told us something very different. Our framers said the federal government is our creature and is to obey our will as enshrined in our Constitution. The first remedy. James Madison said, our Constitution depends on the people having the virtue and intelligence to select men of virtue and wisdom to office. We failed in this. We failed because we don't know our founding principles and Constitution. And we abandoned the concept that we ought to be guided by standards and principles external to our own precious selves. We believe people ought to be able to do what they feel like doing. We believe politicians ought to vote their conscience and need the flexibility to do what needs to be done. We think that's being practical. This is how we got spineless Republicans. They talk conservative when they campaign, but once in office they go along with the progressive agenda. Why don't they oppose the progressive agenda? Because many of them don't know what the alternative is to the progressive agenda. They don't know our 5 founding principles, that our Constitution created a Congress with limited and enumerated powers, that the President's powers are carefully limited and defined by the Constitution, and that limited civil government is morally superior to the welfare state. Since they don't know these things, they are buffeted here and there by winds which progressives blow. That's why they go along with it. Why do we elect these empty suits? Because we don't know these things either. That's why we are so easily deceived. The reason we don't know is because we don't care. If it were important to us that our public servants obeyed the Constitution and the principles in our Declaration of Independence, we would have learned these documents ourselves so we could vet, monitor, and discipline our public servants. So we keep voting for people who stand for nothing. They tell us what we want to hear, and we fall for it.